Signs that someone close to you secretly hates you. Trust intuition. Protect yourself. Have you ever felt an invisible wall standing between you and someone you thought you trusted? Behind the kindest smiles can sometimes hide emotions too dark to name. In today's exploration, we dive deep into the hidden currents of human psychology, uncovering the subtle signs of unspoken hostility, silent competition, and veiled manipulation. Understanding these signs isn't about suspicion, it's about awakening your inner wisdom and protecting your emotional freedom. Stay with us as we peel back the layers and reveal the hidden dynamics that shape our closest relationships. The truth is never on the surface. It waits for those courageous enough to look deeper. When intuition warns, the unexplainable sense of unease. Some people enter your life with sweet words, friendly gestures, and seemingly harmless actions, yet sometimes, behind all these appearances, you feel a vague unease, a silent alarm ringing from deep within. There is no clear evidence, no concrete action you can point to that justifies this feeling, only an intuition, hazy but persistent, whispers that something is not right. Carl Jung, the renowned psychologist, called this phenomenon shadow projection, when the darker parts within each person, the parts they refuse to acknowledge, unconsciously seek to reveal themselves. Those who harbor envy, hatred, or resentment, no matter how cleverly they try to conceal it, still leave invisible traces that a sensitive mind can detect. Intuition is the ability to catch these minute signals: averted glances, forced smiles, clumsy gestures, awkward silences. These are not mere fleeting feelings, but sophisticated responses of your nervous system to potential threats. Over thousands of years of evolution, your body has learned to sense the truth even before the rational mind can process it. Sometimes you blame yourself for being too sensitive, too suspicious. You try to dismiss the discomfort, convincing yourself you are overthinking, yet deep inside, a part of you remains alert. It knows what you feel is not random. That unexplainable sense of unease is the voice of survival instincts, the voice of a primal intelligence still residing within every human being. Jung believed that if we learn to listen to these signals, we can avoid much unnecessary pain. The modern world teaches us to trust only what is logical and visible, but some of the most important truths lie hidden beneath the surface of reason, accessible only through intuition. When you feel uneasy around someone, even if every outward sign points to their kindness, do not rush to dismiss that feeling. Pause, observe. Sometimes what is most carefully hidden is what can hurt you the most. Awakening begins by trusting those silent signals your soul detects, and from that fragile starting point, you embark on a deeper journey, the journey of self-protection, self-understanding, and inner growth. The silent signals of hidden hostility, when cloaked behind friendliness, ceases to be a mere emotion. It becomes an unconscious strategy. People do not openly admit their envy, resentment, or hatred. Instead, they disguise it with polite words, feigned concern, and forced smiles. Yet no matter how hard they try to hide it, these emotions inevitably leak out, not through words, but through very small, very subtle, and very real signals. Carl Jung emphasized that the shadow within each person always seeks to project itself onto the outer world. When someone cannot confront their own negative emotions, they unconsciously direct them toward those closest to them. Hidden hostility reveals itself in cold glances when you turn away, in sarcastic jokes that wound your self-esteem, in inexplicable absences when you need them most. These signals are difficult to grasp with rational thought. They are often felt as a vague discomfort, an unnameable sense of unease. Whenever you are near that person, you may tell yourself, You are overthinking. But your body and intuition do not lie. They send you subtle warnings, fleeting instincts that vanish before you can even articulate them. Hidden hostility not only damages relationships, it quietly erodes trust, making you doubt your own feelings. You begin to wonder, am I too sensitive? Am I being unfair to them? This self-doubt, more than any act, is what ultimately causes you to lose your way. Recognizing these silent signs of hostility is not about fostering suspicion or resentment. The goal is to protect your own clarity and self-respect. Because once you stop lying to yourself, you gain the strength to walk away from relationships that harm you in silence. Jung once said, "The shadow that we do not face becomes our fate." If you fail to recognize the hidden hostilities around you, they will continue to influence your life, repeating themselves until you summon the courage to face them. Let intuition guide you. Trust that silent unease. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a gift of awakening. Sign 1. When sarcasm reveals hidden contempt, hostility does not always manifest in overt actions. Often, it hides beneath a veil of jokes, humor, and seemingly harmless banter. The teasing remarks, the offhand sarcastic comments, the repeated jokes targeting your vulnerabilities, these can all be signs of concealed contempt. You may have heard someone speak about you in a half-joking, half-serious tone. When you react, they laugh it off, saying, "I was just joking. Don't be so sensitive." Or, "You have to know how to take a joke." They dismiss your feelings, turning your hurt into entertainment. Yet if these jokes consistently hit the very wounds you find hardest to reveal, and if they repeat with deliberate intent, this is no longer mere coincidence. It is a message masked behind a facade of harmlessness. Carl Jung stressed that what a person cannot accept within themselves, they unconsciously project onto others. When someone persistently mocks your most vulnerable aspects, it is not just an attack on you. It is a revelation of their own insecurities and unresolved shadows. They strike at what they fear and cannot reconcile within themselves. How do these jokes leave you feeling small, confused, humiliated? Do you start doubting your own worth? Be cautious. Such subtle attacks, if repeated over time, can erode your self-esteem in ways you do not immediately recognize. Sarcasm, when paired with cold glances, detached tones, or an obsessive focus on sensitive topics, is a clear sign that the person is not merely joking. They are using humor as a weapon, a means of harming you while maintaining their appearance of innocence. When facing this behavior, the important thing is not to defend yourself or blame yourself for being too sensitive. The important thing is to recognize the truth. Sometimes, sarcasm is not cleverness or humor. It is a disguised outlet for deeply rooted insecurity and contempt. You do not need to justify your feelings to anyone. Your intuition is enough to confirm when words are meant to wound. And the moment you trust that instinct, you begin to protect the fragile but precious core of your self-worth. Sign 2. Sabotage in the shadows. When accidents are no longer coincidence. Not all betrayals are loud. Sometimes sabotage happens quietly, hidden beneath seemingly random acts. Someone forgets to tell you an important piece of information. Someone gives you misleading advice at a critical moment. Someone makes small mistakes just when you need precision the most. At first, you may forgive, thinking it was just an accident. But if these accidents happen repeatedly, especially at crucial moments in your life, then coincidence is no longer a sufficient explanation. It becomes a signal you must heed. Carl Jung pointed out that when people cannot confront their own failures or dissatisfaction, they unconsciously seek to pull others down to their level. Subtle sabotage is not always a conscious scheme. Often, it is the natural outcome of jealousy and the fear that your success will mirror their own inadequacies. You can recognize these acts of hidden sabotage by the recurring feeling of disappointment, The very people you trust the most become the ones forcing you to mend the cracks they themselves created each time. You may tell yourself, it was just bad luck, but your instincts grow clearer. This is no accident. Sabotage in the shadows does more than disrupt your path. It erodes trust, undermines your spirit, and gradually makes you doubt your own abilities. You start hesitating before making big decisions, questioning the very instincts that once guided you. And this is the deepest damage. Hidden sabotage inflicts not immediate failure, but the quiet collapse from within. When you realize that someone consistently creates invisible obstacles in your life, resist the urge to find excuses for them. Observe with awakened eyes. Listen to the silent rhythm that repeated patterns paint. One time may be an accident, 2 times may be coincidence, but 3 times or more, trust the warning life is giving you. Sometimes, protecting your own journey begins by daring to see the hands quietly pushing you off the path you were meant to walk. Sign 3. Silent competition. When your joy becomes a threat to them, not everyone can genuinely rejoice in the success of others. Some people, though appearing calm on the surface, feel your achievements as a bitter reminder of what they have not attained. And instead of sharing your joy, they silently enter a race, a competition without words, but heavier than any overt rivalry. You will not recognize this through direct declarations, but through the way they react whenever you share an accomplishment. If, upon hearing your good news, they immediately bring up their own achievements or subtly downplay yours, you are likely facing a silent competitor. Carl Jung once said, "What a person fails to develop within themselves, they react negatively to when they see it flourishing in others." Your success, instead of inspiring them, becomes a mirror reflecting the deficiencies they refuse to confront, and rather than striving to grow, they choose to dim your light so their shortcomings are less exposed. Silent competition is not simply the desire to surpass others. It stems from the fear of being left behind, the fear that your existence will overshadow theirs. From this fear, they react by boasting about their own achievements every time you share something positive, by belittling your efforts, or by hastily shifting the conversation away from your successes. You will feel a subtle but unmistakable sense of disappointment. You are not seeking to compete. You merely wish to share your joy. Yet, in return, you receive quiet comparisons and a growing emotional distance. The danger of silent competition lies in how it gradually causes you to diminish yourself to avoid hurting them. You stop sharing your successes. You downplay your own worth, all to maintain a fragile illusion of balance. But the price of this compromise is the loss of your own vitality and joy. You do not need to dim your light to make others feel more comfortable in their darkness. True maturity comes from daring to remain whole, even when your brightness forces others to confront their hidden shadows. And sometimes, recognizing who is silently competing with you is the first step in protecting the pure joy you have worked so hard to create. Sign 4. Superficial support. When coldness hides behind a smile, not all support is genuine. Some people, while outwardly showing concern, are never truly present during the critical moments of your life when you need encouragement. They remain silent when you achieve something worth celebrating. They offer only a half-hearted congratulations, or worse, an indifferent silence. Superficial support is not immediately obvious. They still smile, exchange pleasantries, and fulfill the minimal social expectations of a relationship. But if you observe closely, over time, a pattern emerges. They are always absent when it matters most, when you need a companion during moments of triumph or despair. They are nowhere to be found when you share your joys or sorrows. Their reactions are detached, as if your experiences were of little significance. Carl Jung once described this phenomenon as ego dissociation. People who are too disconnected from their own emotions cannot deeply connect with others. Their detachment is not always intentional, rather. It stems from an impoverished inner life that renders them incapable of offering true support. You will feel the hollowness of their presence through a quiet sadness, the sense that your existence does not matter enough to truly touch their hearts. You will find yourself hesitating to share important moments, knowing that your words will not be received with genuine openness. The greatest danger of superficial support is that it makes you question the value of your own experiences. You start to wonder, is my happiness too trivial? Is my pain too insignificant? And gradually, you learn to silence yourself, to hide even the moments that deserve to be celebrated. But the truth remains. Your worth is not determined by others' reactions, your achievements, your sorrows. Your milestones all deserve to be honored, whether surrounded by cheers or met with silence. If you realize that someone is consistently absent during your pivotal moments, accept it without resentment. Not every smile is a sign of true companionship on the journey of growth, and sometimes, recognizing who is merely a casual companion allows you to seek and cherish the relationships that truly nourish your soul. Sign 5. Control disguised as concern. Not every display of concern stems from kindness. Some people, under the guise of love, seek to control every step you take. They offer advice, not to make you more confident, but to sow doubt within you. They express worry, but beneath it lies a need to make you dependent on their guidance. At first, these actions may move you, who would not be touched by someone always ready to offer advice and express concern for your future. But if you listen carefully to your feelings, you will sense something amiss. After every conversation, you feel smaller, more confused, and less trusting of your own decisions. Carl Jung pointed out that the need to control others often arises from an inner fear of chaos. When a person cannot face uncertainty within themselves, they impose order on the external world. They seek to control others to feel they still wield power, at least within the small domain they can manage. Control disguised as concern is hard to detect because it is not violent. It is soft, gentle, wrapped in the language of care, but its effects are very real. You gradually lose trust in yourself. You hesitate over decisions you once made confidently, and you become more reliant on others' advice than on your own intuition. If after every interaction you feel more confused rather than clearer, if every piece of advice leaves you feeling weaker instead of stronger, then it is no longer support. It is subtle manipulation, even if the person offering it is unaware of their deeper motives. Healing begins when you dare to step away from the shadows trying to pull you back. You have the right to listen to advice, but the final decision must always come from within yourself. A healthy relationship never makes you feel smaller within your own world. Sometimes, true love is not about directing your path, but standing beside you, trusting that you carry enough light to find your own way. Sign 6. Gossip and whispering, the weapons of insecure hearts. When someone cannot confront their negative feelings toward you, they rarely express them openly. Instead, they find roundabout ways to vent through whispered conversations behind your back, distorted stories, and rumors that seep quietly into the dark corners of relationships. Gossip is a unique weapon. It does not attack directly but slowly erodes your reputation, your trust, and your connections with others. You will sense it, not through outright accusations but through changed glances, subtle distancing, and unfinished conversations from which you are quietly excluded. Carl Jung analyzed that people defame others to avoid confronting their own dissatisfaction when feeling inferior, small or insecure. Some choose to drag others down rather than face and heal their inner wounds deep down. Gossip does not reveal truths about you. It exposes the unhealed shadows within those who spread it. The pain of gossip lies in its indirect nature. You cannot easily counter accusations that were never directly made. You cannot correct misunderstandings. You are not allowed to fully know. And that helplessness, that ambiguity, slowly entangles many people, leading them to lose themselves within the invisible web of whispered rumors. But there is one truth to remember. Your worth does not reside in the mouths of others. Those who are quick to believe unverified stories about you are not worthy of your sincerity. And sometimes, losing those who so easily change their stance based on rumors is more of a liberation than a loss. You do not need to chase after explanations. You do not need to defend yourself against every story. The only thing you must firmly hold on to is the truth within yourself. Genuine purity does not need to shout for validation. It radiates quietly but steadfastly, and time will always be its faithful companion. Rumors and whispers only have power if you allow them to define your worth. Once you stand firm, your inner light will become a resilient shield against every blow from insecure hearts. Sign 7. When your success makes them uncomfortable instead of happy. In genuine relationships, your success should be a shared joy. Those who truly care about you will rejoice when they see you grow and feel proud when you overcome challenges and achieve what you desire. But not everyone has a heart wide enough to celebrate another's happiness without feeling hurt by it. You can recognize this difference through very subtle details. A forced smile when you share your achievements. An averted gaze when you mention what you have accomplished. A half-hearted compliment tinged with indifference or worse. A tense silence right at the moment you are most joyful. Carl Jung once pointed out that the success of others can unconsciously trigger feelings of failure in those who have not resolved their own inner dissatisfaction. Instead of seeing your achievements as inspiration, they perceive them as painful reminders of what they have not yet attained. You will sense this in seemingly small moments. A sudden withdrawal when you seek congratulations, a detached comment that dims your joy, or a rushed effort to steer the conversation toward other topics, away from the light you have just ignited. The most unsettling part is that this discord is never openly discussed. No one directly accuses you of anything, yet you feel the growing distance, the increasing coldness, each time you take a step forward. Their discomfort at your success says nothing about your worth. It merely reflects the silent pain within those who have yet to reconcile with themselves, and you have no obligation to shrink your dreams or dim your growth to make others feel more at ease. You do not need to apologize for progressing. You do not need to apologize for living up to your potential. Those who truly care about you will find joy in your happiness. Those who cannot will naturally drift away from the light you are building. In this way, your success not only helps you grow, it also illuminates which relationships are genuine and which are merely shadows following you on your journey. Sign 8. When their body betrays, what their words try to hide. Words can be crafted, behaviors can be masked, but the body always tells the truth in fleeting moments. The smallest signs can betray the real emotions. Someone is trying to hide: a fleeting glance, a forced smile, a limp handshake, a heavy silence at the wrong time. All are subtle signs that reason can disguise, but the subconscious cannot. Carl Jung emphasized that the body and the unconscious always move together. When a person feels hostility, jealousy, or insecurity toward you, no matter how hard they try to use words to conceal it, their body cannot fully hide their emotions. A sudden stiffness in their hands, a brief frown, a sudden shift in vocal tone, These tiny details are the most honest language of feeling. You may not be able to immediately explain why you feel something is off. You just know that, when standing before them, there is a silent tension. An invisible wall you cannot break through. Intuition will be your most loyal companion in those moments. Because sometimes, even when reason hesitates, your subconscious already knows. When you share a joy and they avoid eye contact. When you confide a sorrow and receive only a stiff smile. When you speak of dreams and catch a fleeting look of coldness, these are stronger proofs than any words. Because while speech can be molded to suit intentions, the body's reactions reflect the true emotions occurring deep within. Truth is written through gestures, silences, and subtle shifts, perceived only by a heart sensitive enough to catch them. If you have noticed these signs more than once, trust your instincts. The body does not lie, and your survival instinct is always striving to lead you away from falsehoods. You do not need to confront them or rush to judgment. Just step back far enough to see clearly sometimes. Your silent withdrawal is the clearest affirmation that you have recognized the truth and chosen to protect yourself. Trusting intuition, when the subconscious sees what reason cannot yet name, there are things we know before we can put them into words. A glance, a gesture, an unusual silence, all create a silent, hazy, but very real perception. It is the voice of intuition, a deeper intelligence than reason, where the soul communicates with reality through a language beyond words. Carl Jung once affirmed that intuition is the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. When you feel uneasy around someone and cannot explain why, it is not weakness or paranoia. It is your subconscious detecting signals that your rational mind has not yet processed. In today's world, where everything demands evidence, logic, and proof, we are often taught to ignore our intuition. We force ourselves to trust only the obvious, the smooth words, the polite gestures, even when, deep within, something is screaming that something is wrong. Intuition offers no evidence. It presents no arguments. It simply delivers tiny sensations, a tightening in the chest, a subtle discomfort, a silent urge to step away. Precisely because of its fragility, intuition is often dismissed, overridden by rational thought insisting that everything seems fine. But ignoring your intuition means abandoning your most natural warning system, because the subtlest dangers never announce themselves loudly. They creep into our lives with smiles, sweet words, seemingly harmless actions, but they silently erode the soul. If you have ever felt inexplicably uneasy, if you have ever sensed hidden hostility no one acknowledged, learn to trust those feelings. Intuition does not ask you to act impulsively. It asks you to listen, to observe more carefully, to maintain a necessary distance to protect your clarity and peace. In a world where everything can be disguised, intuition remains the first and last light that leads you to the truth. And sometimes, the greatest salvation comes from daring to trust what you feel before the external world confirms it. When you detect hostility, how to begin healing the wounds of the heart. Discovering hidden hostility from those you trust is a painful experience. It shatters not only your image of them, but also makes you question yourself. Did I do something wrong? Do I deserve this? But on the journey of growth, some truths must be faced, even when they bring pain. Carl Jung emphasized that only by confronting the darkness can we truly begin the healing journey. The pain of discovering deception is not an end. It is the first doorway to inner freedom. The first step in healing is to stop blaming yourself. You are not responsible for the insecurity, jealousy, or resentment others harbor within them. Their negative projections are not a truthful reflection of you. They are distorted images created by their own unhealed wounds. The second step is to allow yourself to feel the pain. Do not hide the sadness. Do not force yourself to appear strong. Let yourself fully experience the disappointment, the loss, the hurt, because only by touching the depths of emotion can the wound begin to heal authentically. The third step is to rebuild trust, but first, trust in yourself. Trust the signals your intuition has warned you about. Trust that you are worthy of genuine relationships, where your success is not seen as a threat, where your existence is not subtly undermined by envy. Detecting hidden hostility is not a failure. It is proof of your growing sensitivity, your evolving ability to protect yourself. It marks a pivotal shift from striving to be loved by everyone to choosing relationships that truly nourish your soul. You cannot prevent others from carrying their own darkness, but you can choose not to let their shadows dim your light. And in the moment you realize that stepping away from toxic energy is not a loss, but an act of profound self-love, you lay the first bricks on the path to true healing. Learning not to react, building inner strength and emotional control when facing hidden hostility. The instinctive human response is often to resist, argue, or try to prove one's innocence. Yet in those very moments, the thing your adversary secretly hopes for is already happening. You lose your inner peace in pursuit of a silent battle, a battle you can never win through argument alone. Carl Jung emphasized that true strength does not lie in reacting, but in the ability to control your reactions. When you learn not to respond hastily to coldness, to backstabbing words, to contemptuous glances, you are not only protecting your mind, you are also building a fortress within yourself. Not reacting does not mean weakness or surrender. It is a conscious choice. A choice not to allow others to control your emotions, not to grant them the power to hurt you again. Each time you maintain inner silence in the face of external provocation, you further strengthen your soul's true freedom. Building inner strength begins with small acts, knowing when to walk away from toxic conversations, knowing when silence is wiser than argument, knowing when to channel your energy into your growth, rather than being dragged into emotional quagmires others create. Emotional control is not suppression. It is the art of understanding your emotions, facing the pain, anger, and disappointment rising within you, yet refusing to let them dictate your actions. It is the ability to take a deep breath before responding. It is the ability to smile calmly when someone tries to disturb your peace. It is the ability to move forward without needing applause or approval from anyone. Because the greatest power you possess is the ability to maintain your inner center amid the undercurrents of life. And once you master the art of non-reaction to hostility, you will realize strength does not lie in defeating others. It lies in mastering the emotional storms within yourself. This is the first step toward becoming a truly free individual, not imprisoned by the judgments of others, not bound by invisible hostilities, but living by the light you carry within, seeing the darkness, understanding people and life more deeply. When you begin to recognize the signs of hidden hostility, jealousy, and unhealed wounds in others, you not only become more vigilant, you also begin to understand the world with different eyes, the eyes of profound compassion. Carl Jung once said that people are not simply what they outwardly present. Within every action, every glance, every word lies an invisible history, a history of wounds, fears, and shadows they have not dared to confront. When someone envies you, when someone undermines you in silence, it often reflects far more about their own inner helplessness and pain than it does about your true worth. Understanding this allows you to gradually let go of the need to personalize everything. You no longer ask, "Why are they treating me this way?" Instead, you quietly acknowledge they are struggling with the parts of themselves that remain unhealed. Understanding others does not make you weak. It makes you mature, because you no longer get swept away by the emotional games others try to play. You can stand amidst their emotional storms without being carried away. You can see their insecurity and pain without making it your responsibility to heal them. And at the same time, you will understand life better. The world is not composed purely of good or evil. It is a complex tapestry of souls endlessly wrestling between their darkness and their light. Sometimes the worst behaviors come from hearts that have suffered the deepest wounds. Sometimes the coldest indifference is merely the last layer of armor protecting a profoundly wounded soul. Understanding people and life does not mean you must forgive every harmful act, but it allows you to release resentment, to lay down the heavy burden of trying to change or please everyone. You learn to walk with an awakened heart, compassionate, yet firm in protecting your own boundaries. And in that understanding, you will not only find freedom, you will find a peace deeper than any apology or validation the outside world could ever offer. From wounds to awakening, the journey back to your true self-pain is not the end. It is the signal of a turning point, a call for you to step out of old illusions and return to your authentic self. Each time you recognize hidden hostility, each time you stumble before betrayal, life whispers to you, "It is time to awaken." Carl Jung once said, "You cannot become light without having the courage to pass through the darkness." The wounds you carry are not signs of failure. They are the marks of a journey of growth where you are forced to face the truth, to relinquish comforting illusions, and to rebuild an unshakable inner world from the shattered pieces. Awakening does not happen during peaceful moments. It happens amidst chaos, when what you once trusted crumbles, when the relationships you clung to no longer have a place. It is in these very moments that you are forced to turn inward, to find the strength that no external force can grant you. Through your wounds, you learn that kindness is not always reciprocated, that sincerity is not always appreciated. But that does not make kindness or sincerity meaningless. It only makes them more precious because you choose to carry light, even when the world around you is immersed in darkness. Awakening is when you realize you do not need everyone's approval. You do not need validation from those who cannot see your worth. You do not need to shrink yourself to fit anyone's expectations. You only need to stay true to your inner truth, to walk with your own feet, and to live with a heart no longer shackled by fear or the need to be liked. The journey back to your true self is not a road lined with roses. It is a path of shedding, of breaking, of pain that touches the very core, only for a new self to be born, stronger, freer, and more whole. You are not what others label you to be. You are the story you are writing through your courage, your perseverance, and the unquenchable light deep within your soul. Hidden hostility, dispelling common psychological misconceptions. One of the greatest misconceptions about relationships is believing that if someone acts kindly, they must truly love you. In reality, people can wear many masks. Sweet behavior does not always equate to loyalty, just as coldness is not always a sign of hatred. Carl Jung once said, "Much of what we perceive from others is the result of shadow projection, where unacknowledged parts within themselves silently shape how they interact with the world." When someone expresses hidden hostility, it often has little to do with you personally. It is usually a battle they are silently waging within themselves. Dispelling the first misconception, you are not the cause of the negative emotions others carry. You may be the trigger. the mirror reflecting their wounds, but the root lies within them. Dispelling the second misconception, you are not obligated to heal those who are hurting. Kindness does not mean becoming a lifeline for souls drowning in their own darkness. Dispelling the third misconception, not all who hurt you are aware they are doing. So hidden hostility often comes from the unconscious. They may not realize they are envious, sabotaging, or causing you pain, yet their lack of awareness does not lessen the wounds you must endure. And finally, dispelling the notion that you must continue to tolerate harm because you understand them. Understanding does not mean allowing yourself to be hurt further. True understanding teaches you when to extend compassion and when to establish firm boundaries to protect yourself. When you dismantle these misconceptions, you step into a new state of freedom, no longer seeking acceptance from hearts not ready to love, no longer contorting yourself to sustain relationships built on pretense and compromise. You will realize inner peace does not come from changing others, but from the courage to choose what aligns with the light within you. And when you are brave enough to reject toxic relationships, you clear the path for deep, genuine connections that nourish your soul. This is not just a healing journey. It is a return to your true purpose in life, to live authentically, to live freely, and to live worthy of the light you carry. You don't need everyone's approval. Finding freedom and life's true meaning, one of the most enduring invisible chains binding human beings, is the need for approval from childhood. We are taught that love equals acceptance, that our self-worth depends on others' applause, and in adulthood, many still unconsciously carry this burden, striving to please everyone, striving to fit into molds crafted by others. But Carl Jung emphasized, the path back to your true self requires you to relinquish the need for unconditional acceptance, because in this world, there will always be those who misunderstand you, disagree with you, or even oppose you simply because you dare to live authentically. You do not need everyone's approval to have worth. Your value does not come from praise or consensus. It comes from being true to yourself, from having the courage to walk the path your heart calls you toward, even if no one applauds you along the way. True freedom begins the moment you stop seeking external validation. When you understand that you were not born to please everyone, you cease contorting yourself to meet their expectations. You stop dimming your own light just to avoid making others uncomfortable. And you begin to live, not by performing, but by answering the deepest call of your soul. Finding life's true meaning is not a sudden revelation. It is a gradual journey, stepping away from toxic relationships, daring to say no when necessary, daring to choose what makes you feel alive, even if it sets you apart. Life's meaning is not found in being universally adored. It lies in knowing that you are living in alignment with your truest self, whether the world understands you or not. And, wonderfully, once you stop craving universal acceptance, you will begin to attract those who truly resonate with you. Free souls, hearts that see you for your essence rather than your facade. Freedom does not come from being loved by the majority. It comes from choosing to love yourself fully, unconditionally, and from there, every step you take, every breath you draw, carries meaning, not because someone else recognizes it, but because you are truly alive.